Lincoln Riley had some thoughts that he was giving to the SEC in an interview on television that he did with Collin Cowherd. Now, Lincoln Riley was talking about the parity going on in college football and how great it is for college football and how much more interest there is in college football. And when he was asked about why this might be happening, he said it's not just one part of the country that's paying players anymore. Obviously, a subtle jab at the SEC and what they've had going on for years upon years. And so Lincoln Riley is obviously on this boat with everybody else who says the SEC has been paying players. Now, it is a little interesting coming from, a USC head coach, obviously Reggie Bush and that whole situation. We don't need to rehash all of that, but it's not like Lincoln Riley was the head coach that was there. And I even saw some people saying, well, Lincoln Riley was in the SEC. He would know all about it. No, he was in the Big 12. Oklahoma was in the Big 12 at that time. He was not in the SEC. Oklahoma joined the SEC 2 years ago. Lincoln Riley's been at USC. I think this is going to be his either fourth or fifth year. I'm forgetting at this point which one it is. I'm sure a USC fan, maybe Trojan Fight. If you're still there, let me know how many years he's been there. But overall, Lincoln Riley decided to take a shot at the SEC and talk about how parity is much greater in college football now because essentially everybody is able to pay players, and it's a great thing. He said this post NIL kind of revenue sharing era, it's providing a lot of recruiting shifts and things that are going on, and USC is benefiting from that. Now, there's been a lot of thought process about USC, how much they're paying players, are they staying within the revenue share and everything else, and all I have to say to that is at this point, there are no real rules to the revenue share. There's almost like a suggested number of $20.5 million, but you've seen probably the LSU contract to Sam Levitt and everything else where they say, well, if we're going to stay within the revenue share, here's how much money we give you. But if we go over and beyond that, essentially, here's how much money we'll give you because this is the way of college football right now. There is nobody enforcing these rules. There's nobody being super tight with these things. And so it is providing basically a wild, wild west of college football where everybody can pretty much pay anybody as much as they see fit. And for a lot of teams, they don't like that as much. But obviously, the Big Ten is thriving in this area. USC was thriving on the recruiting scene. This class to be able to sign one of the better classes, and it's not just because of money. Money is obviously a huge thing, but it's not just because of money. It's also because they had a lot of in-state talent. Obviously, Chad Bowden came in and wanted to really prioritize recruiting and wanted to get that going on, get that happening, and they have fantastic recruiters on their coaching staff as well that they have there. So we'll see exactly how this works out for USC, but Lincoln Riley is exactly right that there is more parity now in college football, and the SEC not being the only ones, or pretty much the only ones paying players, is making a huge difference as well. The SEC's kind of under the table paying culture was able to get them so much more talent than everybody else. In addition to that, where the talent is able to stay and work things out. The evidence of change is that you're seeing so many more contenders for the college or the national championship outside of the SEC. You're seeing the Big Ten with 5, 6, 7 national championship contenders. And honestly, you're probably only seeing the SEC have maybe 5 or 6 at this point. I saw somebody one time who listed 12 teams in the SEC that could contend for a national championship every single year. I thought that was ridiculous. He listed 5 Big Ten teams, and I said, what in the world are you thinking? It just didn't make any sense. Now, could some of those teams contend if they get maybe the right amount of talent together and get the right head coach? Sure, but you could say that for a lot of different teams out there. And so you're seeing more year over year national championship contenders outside of the SEC than we've seen in a long, long time. So USC, this is actually, regardless of the Reggie Bush stuff, which again, we're not going to get super into that. Lincoln Riley's kind of the perfect one to be saying this kind of stuff, right? Back in 2024, USC was able to upset LSU in the first game of the season. Everybody thought LSU was going to win that game, and Riley was able to beat Texas A&M and Mike Elko in their bowl game as well. They dominated them in the 2023 bowl game. I forget which bowl game it was, or 2024. Yeah, the 2024 bowl game. And so Lincoln Riley has a 2-0 record against the SEC since back then. Now they lost to Utah, and that's unfortunate there in the bowl game that happened here, but Riley is able to take shots at the SEC because he's not losing to the SEC. What was also interesting, though, was that Chad Bowden and Lincoln Riley both spoke to the media, and they both talked about kind of expectations of where USC is at. And I do think that some of these comments by Lincoln Riley are playing into some of these expectations for USC and where they might be going this season, too. Chad Bowden, he commented to the media in a press conference about USC and where they might be. And he said, at USC, you have to go to a playoff. He said, it is what it is. And so basically setting the standard to say, look, USC is not happy if we're not going to the playoff. The playoff is where we need to be. And excuse me, there are some thoughts out there that USC is kind of like in playoff or bust territory this season, to see if something like that might go on, or if this is a situation where USC, maybe that's not playoff or bust, but Lincoln Riley and his reputation out there at Southern California is going to be hurt if he is not able to get this team to the playoff, as they have invested a good amount of money through the transfer portal, recruiting, and everything else. Now, I personally think that USC has a very tough schedule this year, so I'm not going to hold it against Lincoln Riley all that much if in the very first year of his big recruiting class he doesn't go to the playoffs. But I do think you have an excellent opportunity here with Jada Mayava returning, King Miller, Wayman Jordan, some guys on the offensive line returning too. Now, you went out and got some wide receiver help there, and you also went out and got Gary Patterson as your new defensive coordinator. Hopefully he'll be able to help out the Trojans as well. But Chad Bowden's making it clear that this is not a program that is, excited about 8-4 or 9-3 right now. This is a program that expects to make the playoffs, and if Lincoln Riley wants to make that happen, he has to help other people see that you can't have SEC bias. And it's a smart tactic, taking a jab at the SEC with the Big Ten narrative, because the SEC is going to start playing those 9 conference games next season, and there does need to be a thought process about the records that typically the SEC was able to have be inflated because of only playing 8 conference games to now. I mean, look back at last season, right? Would a team like Oklahoma, who was, what were they, 10-2 to USC being 9-3, if you add one more loss to that Oklahoma team because of one more conference game, that Oklahoma team's not in the college football playoffs, and they're probably honestly down similar to where USC was last year. If you take away one of USC's conference games, let's say they take away Oregon and USC didn't have to play that game, that team is most likely 10-2, and if they're not in the playoffs, they're very close to getting in the playoffs. Being Iowa certainly would have helped, and how they performed down the stretch. If they would have obviously not lost that Oregon game, that would have helped too. And so you start looking at the situation and say, USC is in a much more favorable situation this year. Now the schedule is not, working out all that well, but hopefully they'll get some grace for playing a tougher schedule and playing some of the best teams in the Big Ten, who has shown year after year, the past 3 years, that they're going to have a national championship team, or at the very least, a national championship contender that's going to be very highly regarded up there as well. So I think it's a strategy by Lincoln Riley to take a jab at the SEC, but I also think at the same time, Lincoln Riley sees what a lot of us do as well, which is that right now the SEC not as dominant as they used to be, and the SEC, when they aren't paying players and getting the best talent, they're struggling more than maybe they have been in the past. And again, you can say what you want about Reggie Bush and everything else and all that stuff, and you know what? If you say that, you're probably just proving Lincoln Riley's point a little bit more. But the guy wasn't at USC when that was happening, and so I don't really hold it against him now. I'm